This is Jeff Standridge, and this is the Innovation Junkies podcast. If you want to drastically improve your business, learn proven growth strategies, and generate sustained results for your organization, you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Innovation Junkies podcast. Hey guys, welcome to another bonus episode of the Innovation Junkies podcast. My name's Jeff Standridge.
Hey, and this is Jeff Amaron. Glad to be back.
Hey man, how are you doing?
You know, I'm always great when we have these bonus episodes. It's like a free gift brought to you by the Department of Redundancy Department.
Redundancy. That's right. Very good. Right. So what are we talking about today? What's the bonus we're going to give our listeners today?
So here we are in essentially the third year of the global pandemic, coronavirus pandemic. And I think what we want to talk about is with the rise of Omicron, and that really sounds like that'll be a name for a transformer, I think. What's the impact on business going to be or not be based on what we're seeing? The infection rates are crazy. Everybody's getting it. The masks are not doing any good. Doesn't matter if you've been vaccinated or not. It's becoming pervasive. So we wanted to talk a little bit about that. So what do you think, Jeff? What's the impact going to be on business for 2022?
You know, I think there's going to be a short-term impact, which will be difficult. And then I think there's going to be a longer-term impact, which will be not so difficult. That's just my own beliefs. Those do not necessarily represent the beliefs of the community in which I live or the government that I'm involved with. Well, yeah, a little joke there for you. But I think the short-term impact is it's going to continue to create unpredictable flows of clients or of business, if you will. Some businesses, they're going to probably experience some downturn in client business, perhaps because of people's being a little more cautious. Other businesses where there are particular items that are necessary for households and necessary for organizations to do business may experience the same or slightly increases. I think the real short-term impact is going to be just the continued unpredictability. We don't really know. Yeah. Personally, I believe the long-term impact is going to be much more beneficial. As you said, this particular variant of Omicron is much more highly contagious, but it is much less severe, particularly to those who have been vaccinated and or who have had prior exposures to COVID or prior inoculations, if you will, with the actual COVID virus. And so in that instance, more people are going to get it. The scare of more people getting it is driving vaccination rates up. And so those two things together, I happen to believe we're probably one more variant away from COVID being a thing of the past. And that's just based on my own internal belief.
So you think there'll be one more variant just based on how these things go, and then it becomes endemic.
When I say a thing of the past, I think we're going to always have COVID, right? But I think it will be rendered another version of what's known as respiratory syncytial virus in pediatric patients, or the flu in adults, and seasonal, if you will, bugs that just become part of, as you said, endemic, and it's who we are.
Well, and a couple of interesting things that I think are non-controversial. Hopefully, you never know. There's always tends to be strong opinions on this. But one thing that CDC released recently is 70% of all of the previous COVID deaths, not talking about Omicron, in 70% of the instances, there were 4 comorbidities or underlying conditions.
Right. Yep.
So now with Omicron, there may still be people that are severely compromised, immunocompromised, or have other issues, which can be hospitalized, can be intubated, can be, all the bad stuff.
And they need to take precautions and stay at home, isolate themselves, and take significant precautions to keep from getting Omicron.
Absolutely. For the vast, vast, vast majority of people vaccinated, and I think maybe the South African data would show unvaccinated, Omicron is not going to be severe. It's not really any more severe, because I just went through it, than a bad, reasonably bad seasonal cold or a mild flu. And you get through it pretty quickly, and you come out the other side and you're feeling pretty good. So from a business standpoint, I think that we're starting to see a recognition that we can't have 2 weeks of quarantine, probably 5 days is once you're kind of beyond the symptoms is going to be, and you've tested positive, is going to be all that's required. And I think that some of that's being dictated by the CDC
Mm-hmm.
out of necessity because they realize we can't shut down the schools, we
Right.
can't shut down businesses, because when you start talking about an infection rate, and I think the most recent infection rate in this state of people that tested was like 25%, you're talking about having big swaths of the workforce out, not because they feel bad and maybe not because they're infectious, but because they were positive tested. So,
Yeah.
so I think that we're, like you said, short-term pain. I think the back end of this is the beginning of the end, hopefully, on the epidemic stage of this, and we're going to move to where, if you're so inclined, you can get an annual shot for it, and it'll be something that will kind of be more routine for most people. You know, a lot of stuff that we don't talk about is the flu kills people, lots of people every year.
Yeah.
And typically they're people that have other underlying issues, or it turns, you end up getting a secondary infection of pneumococcal pneumonia or something like that. So I'm really kind of optimistic that this is a significant turning point, even though it's unpleasant in the short term. And I
Yeah.
think businesses are going to respond accordingly.
Well,
Hopefully.
and I think the advice that we gave our business customers and entrepreneurs in the early days of COVID 1.0
Yeah.
was, number one, you need to be looking at the non integral parts of your business, the non integral expenditures, the discretionary expenditures, and conserving those. Don't make those purchasing decisions. Don't make those discretionary investments or what have you at that time. When it comes to serving your customer, be sensitive to the fact that there are people that are still frightened.
Sure.
And if you have a product or a service that is just as useful in the midst of a pandemic as it was before or it will be after, then you have a moral and an ethical obligation to continue to tell people about it and to attempt to
Sure.
sell it. But think about some of the concerns or some of the frightened customers that you may have, and look for alternate ways to serve those customers in a way that reduces their anxiety.
Yeah.
Those things I think are still prudent in even the Omicron days.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think there'll still be a little bit of a chilling effect on large gatherings, although I think we probably had over 100,000 people in Lucas Oil Field in Indianapolis for the collegiate national championship last night. But I do think there'll be a chilling effect for normal people that, like us, that are in the event business. We'll have to think through. We want to have large gatherings and all that for some period of time until the exposure rate is so high that everybody is either had it or has recovered from it. In which case, I think most people will start to become more comfortable. And part of what I think needs to be done, and this would be a request of those that are in biotech, is we need a really accessible antibody test. And actually, companies like Now Diagnostics are working on such a thing. They've got it FDA approved so that you can readily know this is my current state of immunity versus, well, I either tested positive or I didn't test
Yeah.
positive. There's a huge rush to get all the tests out. I think the real opportunity is we need more accessible antibody tests that businesses and individuals can use to say, hey, this person's protected.
That's right.
That's a whole lot better than just sort of the mass hysteria around let's wear, surgical level mask, even though we know the science says they don't work worth a darn, particularly with Omicron. And let's push to get vaccinations, which I'm a fan of, even though they're not going to reduce the spread at this point. They're going to cause the illness to be less severe. So I think that those kinds of things, where the government, where business can help, is by getting around the facts and then rolling out solutions that actually provide useful information rather than sort of blanket solutions. I'm
So,
hoping for that anyway.
so as a business leader, keep your chin up. Continue to be aggressive in leading your business. Continue to be prudent in terms of investing and expending in your business. Look for areas to consolidate and conserve. But hopefully, knock on wood, in the next 3, 5, 7, 9 months, we're going to be looking on the backside of this.
Absolutely. And all of us, per what we said early on, improvise, adapt, and overcome, all of us are a heck of a lot more resilient to this kind of disruption than we were in February and March of 2020.
That's
I'm
it.
optimistic.
Very good.
All
Thanks
right.
for joining us. This has been another bonus episode of the Innovation Junkies podcast. We'll see you next time.
See you next time. Hey folks, this is Jeff Amrine. We want to thank you for tuning in. We sincerely appreciate your time. If you're enjoying the Innovation Junkies podcast, please do us a huge favor. Click the subscribe button right now and please leave us a review. It would mean the world to both of us. And don't forget to share us on social media.